All right, guys, we are back for another episode of the On Call Empath. And today I have a very special guest. Her name is Heather Peterson. She's a mind body coach and founder of Pain Free for Good. Today, we're going to be talking about all kinds of things that you guys do not want to miss, especially if you have experienced any type of health issue, mysterious pain, and you always wanted to know what other resources out there. Before we start, I just want to give a quick disclaimer. This is not medical advice. If you have any medical issues, make sure you see a qualified physician. This is just our experiences. So with that said, Heather, welcome to the On Call Empath. It's an honor to have you. Thank you
Thank you
for
so
being on the show.
much.
Absolutely. So yeah, I was just going through your Instagram, and all of your content really stood out to me and resonated. As you know, I've been dealing with pain for like decades, and it moves around, and I've seen so many different doctors, and I went to so many different people in my life, and I got to a point where I was just so frustrated I wasn't getting any answers. And just everything that you were saying on your Instagram really it really spoke to me, and I wanted you to come on here to talk to all the empaths, the trauma victims, all the people out there of your experiences. So tell us a little bit how you became a mind body coach and what led you to the amazing work that you do today.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Excited to be here and share, my passion. So I'm a mind body coach. I help people in chronic pain and disease. I got into this not because of my own free will, but because I was led down the path of chronic pain and disease myself. I had a healthy childhood. I had a great upbringing, no childhood trauma that I was aware of at the time. We all have perceived trauma, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't start having any kind of pain or disease until I was in my 20s. I went through a hard divorce, and those were when my first symptoms kind of showed up. Leading up to that, I suffered from debilitating migraines, knee pain, plantar fasciitis. I was a runner, and that kind of made me stop in my tracks. I was remarried. My husband had 3 kids. I had 1, so I went from 1 kid to 4, and then a year later, we added our 5th. And so blending a family brings its own battles and hardships. And I started having a lot more issues. I went from being perfectly healthy to having vertigo, sinus, like horrible pain, ear pain, neck pain, shoulder pain, back pain, female issues, chronic fatigue, hypothyroidism, adrenal fatigue, hormone imbalance. I mean, you name it. I was kind of a mess for several years, and I went to every doctor, every specialist. I had MRIs and blood work and yada, yada, you name it. Spent all the money, was put on drugs for the rest of my life. And I kind of just accepted my diagnosis at the time and thought, well, this is the way it is, apparently. And at the time, my husband was battling his own pain. He was diagnosed with ankylosing spondylitis, which, for those of you who don't know, is a autoimmune disease, and it brings extreme back pain. So it got real bad to the point where he thought about taking his life, and that was really hard for me to hear, on top of blending a family, on top of my own problems. And so as a family, as a whole, we just kind of we were about as low as we could go, and our kids were battling their own issues with things. My stepdaughter was really having a hard time with migraines, and she was only 2 or 3 at the time, and it was a daily thing, and it was very stressful. Both my boys were battling ADHD, and so we were just kind of this storm of mind body conditions. And so then I was happened to happen upon Dr. Sarno's work, and by the grace of God, I love that. I soaked it up, and I was thirsty for more. And I read all the books about all the mind body conditions and anybody who had any knowledge of it, because that resonated with me and spoke to me at a level that no doctor could. And I was healed of my own conditions off of all medication within a few months, and my husband within 9 months to a year. And all of our kids were no longer dealing with the things they were either because
Yeah.
of this awesome work. And I felt, compelled to help others and shout it from the rooftops. I wanted everybody who dealt with any kind of pain to know that, true healing is for everyone. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
what you're battling.
Yes. Thank you for sharing all that. I know it must have not been easy. And I know firsthand, I mean, I'm still kind of going through it, but Sorno's work definitely changed my perspective with TMS. I've had a lot of TMS specialists on this podcast as well that
Mhm.
also confirmed that there is something there with trauma and actual physical pain, especially with the vagus nerve and all of
Mhm.
those things that come into play. And uh, it's not just talked about when you go to your doctor's office. When you go to see your regular doctor, for some reason, nobody ever talked about how I was doing or what was going on in my background or in my
Mhm.
life. And you don't get that nowadays to when you go in to get a checkup, it's like 15 minutes,
Yep.
you get some pills and then you're sent home. So my
Mhm.
question to you is, why is it a better choice to go through, let's say something alternative than say, going to other practitioners in your opinion?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, let me ask you, do you want to just take a pill for the rest of your life, or would you rather figure out why your pain started, why your disease started?
Oh
And
yeah, like that was a big issue too. Is like I would have to have my pain pills to function.
Mhm.
And thankfully I'm no longer on them, but hell no, I it's like you're a slave to that, you
Absolutely.
know.
Yeah. So, I would say, getting to the root cause of your pain is the number one factor. And I take pride in getting to know my clients at a very deep level. From the first meeting, I ask a lot of deep personal questions. I get to know them at a very
Mhm,
intimate basis, and we discussed a lot of uncomfortable traumas and their past and their upbringing, and
mhm,
so I feel like getting to know the person and what makes them tick and the traumas they've been through and why their belief systems,
mhm.
that really helps me have a better understanding of them and how to point them in the right direction. So I would say, why wouldn't you choose someone who really wants to get to know you,
Yeah,
Um, I just feel like, we've gotten so far away from permanent healing
yeah,
in the Western society, and, our society is almost, like, fixated on Band-Aids, "Let's take a pill, let's have a
yeah,
surgery, let's just get the pain to go
yeah,
away." But why don't you want the pain to go away permanently instead of
yeah,
just for this short period of time until your next pill's due to be taken, right?
sure.
I just feel like true healing is never going to be found in a lab or in a pill or in a surgery or replacing your hips or your knees.
Mhm.
Um, and true healing is found within ourselves.
Yeah, I love how you said that. And I mean, there was actually a particular post that you did make that I read before I even contacted you in the first place. It was a little while ago. You had posted something along the lines of, and I'll read it out loud. It was one of your posts that says, "She silently stepped out of the race. She never wanted to be in and found her own lane and proceeded to win. I am here. I am me. I am winning for being who I am and truly meant to be." And that like whole thing really spoke to me. And if you can kind of convey like what was going through your mind, because you went through a whole process and now it seems like you're over it.
Mhm.
So can you just kind of explain to like all the audience member, first how it felt, how did you know you were out of it, and then two, what are some of the common misconceptions that people have?
Sure. So I, I mean, I'm sure I'm just like everybody else that goes to the doctor, and they just want someone to tell them what's going on, and they want the answers, and I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't know the last time I went to the doctor and I truly felt understood and heard and
Exactly.
like I was on the clear path to being out of whatever I was dealt
Hmm.
with. And so my first experience actually with the mind body connection was with an energy worker. I had a
Hmm.
craniosacral with a amazing lady named Andrea Carver, and
Hmm.
she explained to me, you don't just have like all of these trapped traumas in your body. You actually, this is the reason why you're sick. This is the reason why you have hypothyroidism, because you don't dare to speak your truth. This is why you have migraines, because your positive outlook is outweighing, or your negative outlook is outweighing your positive. Your ears, you don't like what you're hearing. All of the things, the turmoil that's going on in your world is hard to hear. And I could go on and on about each mind body condition I had and the emotion associated with it, but I felt understood finally. And that made sense to me. I just wanted someone to hear me out and to be like, this is why the energy behind it and the emotion and the suppression that spoke to me at such a deep level, because I'm a perfectionist, I'm a people pleaser, I'm a goodist, I'm that type A personality, and all of those, personality types that make you more susceptible to pain. I mean, I'm walking, living proof of all of that. And as most people who suffer are, right? And so that made more sense to me than pain just showing up, right?
Yeah. It's so funny you mentioned all those traits, people pleasing, boundary issues. Like that's all like the empaths, like we all have problems speaking up, or sometimes trauma victims, they'll repress emotions from years and years of abuse, and they'll go through EDMR therapy, or they'll go through some intense trauma work. Because I've had a lot of trauma specialists on this podcast, and literally they're like cured after. And that leads me to ask you, it's like, wait a minute, there is definitely a connection, and why isn't the medical community talking about it? Now, here's the thing. I know there's a lot of money involved, and there's money in the pills and marketing and all that stuff. But the bottom line, we're dealing with people, human lives. And that's why having dialogues like we are today, again, we're not giving advice. We're just giving our 2 cents and what we've been through. But I do want to say that there is something definitely out there. Next time you go to your doctor, if they don't ask you, or how you're doing, like what's going on behind closed doors when in your life, and they're just trying to get you in and writing a prescription and out, that's usually a red flag. It's time to find a new doctor, because I went through probably 20 of them. And I mean, I live in one of the, I feel like I live in one of the worst states where it's just the goal is to pack in as many patients as possible within a time period, because I do know that all my family are doctors, and they tell me behind closed doors, like, we don't have time to spend 15 minutes, let alone 20, 25, 30 minutes with one patient. We have to keep moving them along. So what is the quality of care, and what happens to that person when they leave the office?
Absolutely.
They're just being band-aid, and they're getting worse, and you're throwing more medication at them. Well, as more people are talking about Sorno's work, there's a book called The Great Pain Deception also, which changed my mind. Also, I'm calling BS on the whole thing. Now, granted, I have very great respect for the medical community, and they have their place. But when it comes to pain and, mind body, I think there has to be something that needs to be done. And that's why I really respect the work that you're doing today and sharing your story with so many people.
Thank you. It's powerful. I mean, we're one of 2 countries in the world where direct to consumer information is given to us. I mean, we're constantly inundated with commercials about take this pill, take that, have this surgery. It's amazing, and that information should be for doctors to give to us, not for us to be given to ourselves. And so that's how you're so off track. There's a book called How to Stop Worrying. My husband's going to kill me. He talks about it every day. How to Stop Worrying and Start Living, I believe.
Yes. Dale Carnegie, right?
Yes.
Great book.
My husband loves that book. But you read that, and I mean, they wrote that in the 40s. And I mean, back then they had it right. I mean, it's amazing how far away we've gotten in what, 80 years away from they had it figured out why we were getting sick and the emotions associated with each thing. And now we're just like, you must have something, your body's just breaking down. And it's just amazing how far away we've gotten. And there is money, and it's devastating when somebody is diagnosed with an incurable disease. I mean, I know for me, when I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism and told I was going to be on medication for the rest of my life, that was a tough pill to swallow, and literally and
Mm,
figuratively. I mean, I just when you give someone that diagnosis, it is devastating, and there's no money in it, and that's
mm,
why we're not talking about it in
yeah,
society, you know? My goal
yeah,
as a mind body coach is not to keep a client, and the
yeah,
Western medicine is to keep a client. My goal is to give them the tools where it
yeah.
doesn't matter what comes at them, shoulder pain, back
Mhm,
pain, headaches. I mean, my goal is to teach them what they need to do from the start to
mhm,
overcome anything that comes their way. And
right.
it's the same for, I mean, the way I was brought up versus the way I'm raising my kids is completely
Yeah.
different. I mean, my mom, I was like, I have a stomach ache, and she's like, here's some Pepto-Bismol. I have a headache. Here's an ibuprofen. And my kids to come to me and they say, I have a headache, and I say, what happened at school? You know, and they say, I have a stomach ache, and I'm like, well, what information is hard for you to
Mhm,
digest? You know, we talk about the emotion associated with each thing and not
yeah,
giving them something to just take away the pain. Because when you address the emotion, the pain has no
yeah.
reason to stick around.
One thing I do wanna ask you, and I just want your opinion on this because you definitely, are the appropriate person to ask this to, but why do you think when you go to a doctor's office, they don't talk about, um, nutrition, mind body, meditation, movement, um, changing your diet, and taking vitamins, and eating what you're supposed to? Why is it that they always go for the prescription pad? I mean, we already talked about money and, trying to get people on
Mhm,
repeat, but it just blows my mind that they would just reach for the pad rather than ask, "Well, how is your day going? How's your life
mhm,
going? Well, you just went through a divorce. Okay, well, are you seeking help for that? Okay, let's get you, the right track instead of here, take some antidepressants, come back in 2 weeks, and then we can up it, and
mhm.
then you're hooked."
For sure. I mean, first of all, they're not therapists, right? And so they
Right.
only have 15 minutes to figure out a problem and resolve it and be on their way. But more than that, I think there's a lot of HIPAA rights that they can't ask too many questions.
Uh,
They can't get
yeah.
into that. My sister, she's actually a nurse practitioner, and
Mhm.
she's learning from me, things, and sometimes I've had to like cram it down her throat a little bit just to but she's given a lot of Dr. Sarno books to people and recommendations about,
Yeah.
well, I mean, what's your stress level? And so I really just feel like it's a lack of knowledge, it's a lack of information on all these doctors that are coming through because they have about this much information given to
Mhm.
them in this span of their schooling. And so it's really just
Mhm.
it's a lack of knowledge in the mind body world. It's just
Yeah.
straight physical.
And that's interesting because I don't know of one curriculum that they teach in medical school. I mean, my whole family's come from a medical, background. My
Mhm.
dad's a neurologist, my sister's internal, um, and they went over their medical programs, and there's nothing in there um, that they talk about. Awesome that you are here and you're in front of everyone and just saying that you found a way out. And so my next question to you is, how do we focus? How do we take our focus off the pain? Because sure, somebody's listening on the other end saying, okay, well, that's all great, but how do I get rid of this? Like, all I think about is this pain.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's all consuming. When you're in it, and it's very hard to get out of. I would say the first thing, and it's actually something I teach my clients, is what you focus on magnifies, right?
Mhm.
If you want a Louis Vuitton purse and everybody has one, that's all you're gonna see when you're out in the world, right?
Yeah.
If you want a red Ferrari and all of a sudden everyone's driving a red Ferrari. I mean,
Yeah.
what you focus on magnifies. And so when you're constantly looking at my pain, my pain, my pain, and when's it coming back and how
Yeah.
long is it going to last and how intense is it going to be, that will consume you. You will not live life
Mhm.
outside of your pain. And so really we have to start filling our life taking things out of the pressure cooker, because it's like, how long is the pain going to be? And like you're adding all these ingredients of stress and worry and how intense is the pain, and you're focusing on that constantly, day in, day out,
Yeah.
24/7. You wake up, you think about it, you go to bed, you think about it, right? And so changing your focus, it really is, starts very small.
Yeah.
I would say, you wake up and immediately. You almost have to look for small wins in your day. And that's what I really focus on myself is I can think about, man, I have this laundry list of things I have to do and my kids this
Mm-hmm.
and my laundry and my clients and this and that. And it will bog you down if that's what I want to focus on. But if I can focus on, I'm going to sip my tea and I'm going to
Yeah.
enjoy it. And even though it's snowing outside, I'm grateful for it. We
Mm-hmm.
need it. I mean, it's the small, I folded the laundry. I didn't push start again, it's these small little things that we change our focus on. You can focus on what you have or what you don't have. You can have,
Sure.
I mean, it boils down to focus is huge. I would also say changing your physiology is
Yeah.
even more important than that. I would say, when you're defeated and you're laying on the couch and you're just like being victim to the pain, you're not going to ever get out of it. But if you can like sit up and change your physiology and put your shoulders back and try to put a smile on your face. I can't smile at you and you not smile back at me. It's just like yawning. I mean, our bodies respond to each other in that way.
Yeah.
And if you can change your physiology by moving to a different room, you can change your physiology by
Yeah.
taking a walk, changing your focus off of the pain, and that makes such a big difference. Also, language is so important. When you say, I can't, it's hard,
Yes. Yeah.
very
What you say out
self-defeating.
loud.
Yeah. And so your body is always listening to you at a cellular level. Your cells are always listening and waiting for
Yes.
you, waiting to respond to what you say, because everything you speak and everything you think, your cells are listening.
Yeah.
So when you say, I can't, or I'm always going to be like this,
Yes.
it's defeating. And your body says, okay, you said it. But when you say, I'm getting a little better every day, this is easier, my pain's not
Yeah.
as bad, it really does start to change your cellular makeup.
One thing I want to just point out to all you guys that are listening, I want to just say that words are so powerful. I mean, even like from childhood, if you have an abuser, or even when you go through a bad traumatic event, those words or that negativity sticks with us between those ages. And as we grow older, if we don't change the narrative and it's stuck in our brain, obviously we're gonna, like, when we hit something that we can't handle, we're gonna say we're never gonna get better. And I was one of them. I'll admit, like, I was like, this is it. Like, every doctor I go to said I'm gonna have pain, so that means I'm gonna have pain. But it wasn't until I started throwing away my back brace and the creams and all those little electrodes that I bought off Amazon, and all that went to the garbage. And something clicked in my head that says, okay, you can actually go out to dinner and not carry a book bag with a cushion in there so you can sit so your back doesn't hurt. I said, whatever happens, it's going to happen. And when I started training my brain to start loving my self-care and loving myself and journaling and movement and having these open conversations with people that get it, like you. I mean, I've had several mind body doctors, or therapists, and people, all types of people on this podcast. And one thing I will say 100%, that each one of them has confirmed that there is a connection between trauma and pain. And the more we come to conclusion of that, the more we speak out, the more you can go to a friend, a coach, someone like yourself. That's when the healing begins. And that's my next question to you, wrapping up here. How do we start the healing journey? Like, when someone's listening right now who's given up, what do they do?
Well, I mean, I've dealt with this, in my own home with my own kids, with my own husband,
Yep.
and so it's close to home for me. I think, listening, having a listening ear is so powerful. You know, a lot of times people tend to want to rescue their family members, and people want to be rescued. They want to be rescued from the pain. That's why they run to the doctor, because they're so
Yeah.
desperate for someone to give them attention that they so desperately need, whether that's emotional, physical, I really think that talking through things helps people to feel safe, and they can be vulnerable, and you're not going to
Mhm.
have judgment on them. learning to understand people's childhood trauma and having
Mhm.
compassion for them, I mean, is huge. I
Yeah.
mean, how would you feel if someone just sat down and listened to you and been
Yeah.
like, "Man, that's hard, you know? I'm really sorry you
Mhm.
went through that," and support them in a compassionate way.
Mhm.
Um, and I think encouraging
Yeah.
people to have more soothing factors in their life, like encouraging them to sit
Mhm.
down and not be so busybody, you know, put your phone away and have quiet time and just be in the present moment. I mean, we can't have pain in the present moment. We
Yeah.
can only have pain when we're living in the past, which is depression, and then the future,
Yeah.
which is anxiety.
Anxiety.
And so no pain can reside in the present moment. And the present moment is always love, because
Yeah.
when you're living in the future and the past, um, that's fear.
Mhm.
And so I feel like, well, let's bring it back, you know, let's have a conversation, let's put the
Mhm.
outside sources away, and encourage them to be in an uplifting
Mhm.
environment. How often do people laugh, smile, like
Yeah.
really deep belly laugh? Like not very many people do, especially
No.
when you're in pain. But it's very hard to
Mm.
stay in pain when you're laughing. Um,
Totally. Totally.
I read recently in a book I'm reading, it's called Healing and Recovery by David R. Hawkins. It's amazing. If you haven't read it, it's powerful. But he talks about people who go under anesthesia for surgery, and you know they're cutting you open and moving things around, and they don't have pain, right? And and why is that? Anesthesia has that effect on us, and it's because we are unconscious, right? And so we're not conscious of a lot of the emotions that we're
Mhm.
repressing. So um, we can be our own
Yeah.
anesthetic to ourselves
Totally.
if we really come into the awareness that that's possible for us.
Absolutely. And another good book is that comes to mind is The Body Keeps Score, and
Oh yeah, that's a
that
good
kind
one.
of changed my life too.
Mhm.
And so all of you guys that are listening, even if you don't have pain, you never know later down in life if anything does come up. Just know, like when you reach out to somebody and you're able to express yourself and come back to love, and just kind of stop looking at the news and stop, like, having all these binge things on social media and having all this chaos that causes our nervous system to deregulate, and we're more prone to getting into more disease. Like you said, like you're going to have more health issues when if you don't take care of your mind and your body. And so you're definitely onto something, and definitely good at what you do. But before we take off, if you don't mind telling the listeners where we can find you and what's your handle on social media.
Absolutely. So you can find me at painfreeforgood.com. You can also find me at painfreeforgood on Instagram and Facebook. And you can email me at painfreeforgood7@gmail.com. And I would love to take any questions and queries. I mean, I could talk all day about mind body stuff, and I'm happy to hear about yours.
There you have it, guys. Check her out. I'll have everything in the bio below. Um, and that does it for this episode.